Seeing as it's January, I think it's high time to do a 2024 recap of my writing and also to think ahead about what's coming up in 2025. So this past year, writing was prioritized. Other things definitely fell by the wayside, but that meant that I got a lot of writing done. Let's go into some of my smaller goals that are related to writing but not quite the writing stuff. My Fiverr work was good. I slowed down a little bit because I wanted to focus on writing, and that takes a lot of that kind of creative energy, especially when I'm editing my projects a lot, as I did this year. I scaled back a little bit, but I still did some good projects, did some good work there, helped out some other authors, and that was a lot of fun. I have my Fiverr information linked below if you want me to edit a completed draft. That's the kind of work I'm doing right now, is full developmental critique feedback. So the other stuff that I was doing this year was reading a lot. This was my highest reading year of my life, and that's a pretty exciting thing to me. I read some really good books. I read 73 books. Most of them were audiobook, and so in the next year, I want to focus a little bit more on physical reading. Getting stories anyway is amazing and great, and I freaking love audiobooks, so I'm not going to stop listening to them. The fact that I couldn't get myself to sit down and read a physical book very much was kind of indicating a problem, so I want to work on that. I think it'll be good, for the brain. And then my overall book goal is 50 books for next year. I don't think that reading more than 75 books in a year is like a good goal for me to have personally, especially since I'm reading big books as well, like classics and chunky fantasy books. So I'm gonna set it at a clean 50. Okay, let's get on to the writing stuff. So, okay, what did I do this past year? So my big goal was book one. I just have this book that's, just perpetually in edits, always getting better, but always so far from my personal standard of what a book needs to be. My goal with this book was to share it with some readers this year, and we did do that. In January, I did nothing because January is my very unproductive month. Usually I've just finished a project, I get into a slump, it's cold, I just read books and think about how I'm not writing in January. So that tracked. That's what I did. In February, I started brainstorming again. So I started brainstorming my next revision. At the beginning of the year in February, I started with book one being in this folder of 140,000 words. It's a lovely folder, but the book within is a bit of a mess. And so I needed to carve this thing up and cut as many words as I could. That was my goal. I love the brainstorming creative phase. Once I get into it, it's hard to get into. But so I did that for about a month. And then in March, I started rewriting. That took until September to do that revision. So it was practically the whole year. What came out of that is this. This is draft 4.5. Draft 3 was majorly fixed into draft 4, and then more ideas were flowing. And so then I went back through and did another edit that didn't feel quite like a full edit. So I called it draft 4.5, and I also did a line edit, which also changed a lot of different things. And then I printed it and then sent this to a few very close beta readers. Because some things I'm trying to let slide. Some things I'm like, what if they don't catch it? They are catching them, so we're gonna have to fix them. But I'm really proud of this because this is the first truly readable copy of my book. Like, it's tied together and it's line edited, so I feel like a lot of the writing is high quality as well. This isn't the final version, but this is a very working copy. This one I titled my beta reader copy. This is the main result of 2024, and I cut 20,000 words. That's pretty significant. The other things that I did writing wise in 2024 were I did an entire revision of my second book that I wrote. This revision was pretty straightforward because I thought the book was pretty good to begin with. It's the one I wrote for last NaNoWriMo November. And I was also squished because I wanted to draft another book at the tail end of this year, as is my custom. I had about a month and a half, 2 months maybe for that revision. There are some things I didn't fix, but I took it from a draft 1 to a draft 2 for sure and fixed so many things, and that is in such better shape to the point where as long as I fix like maybe 3 or 4 chapters, I could probably send that to an editor or a beta reader and be pretty confident in that. So I'm very happy with that work. And I mean, compare that to the fact that it takes me literally 9 months to do a revision of this book, and it takes me like a month and a half to do a revision of the second book. I mean, I think that's a big difference in starting quality. So at least I think the drafts are getting better. A first book is always hard. I think it's a rite of passage, so that's fine. And then the last thing that I did, like I said, as my custom is to give myself a total creative break from revising at the end of the year. So I've been doing NaNoWriMo type drafting in November for like 4 years now. So my entire yearly writing schedule is built around that. It's built around editing for as long as I can, and then at the end of the year when I'm exhausted, I go to something new and I draft it, and I give myself just this total creative treat to make mistakes and be messy and to have new ideas and to just be bursting with creativity. And I love the drafting phase. It's so much fun. I love all the phases of writing, like truly I do. I've come to love them as I've gotten to know them, but I think drafting is still my favorite because it's just so free. I drafted a new book in November, December, and the early part of January. That book came out to 86,000 words. Definitely not as big as my first few, which averaged like 130,000 words. I'm very happy that it's so much smaller. It's a little bit in the secret project kind of category, so you might not hear much about it for a long time besides me just saying, hey, I'm working on this. But what I will say is the book has non-traditional structure, which is really fun to work with as a person who's like obsessed with structure. So I was like, is this okay? Am I allowed to do this? And I wrote it that way, and we'll see if it works. But I honestly feel like it's a pretty clean draft, and it had a very detailed outline going into it, and I stuck to the outline very closely. So I think when the book goes to editing, or when I go to edit it the next time, it's going to be pretty simple to edit unless there are major elements I want to add. I hope there aren't. Really hope that was what it was meant to be. But we're going to see probably in like 2 years or something, I'll go back to that. But I'm so glad to have it because I needed to get that out of my head. It was like bursting. Like how I feel with my writing process is that when I have a whole book idea that's like growing, it's going to grow until I sit down and write it. And there's a little bit of sadness there because as soon as I write it, then it's like steady. And I don't daydream about it anymore. I'm not adding, it's not fluid. You know, it almost feels like I killed the living, growing idea. But you have to kind of do that to save it and to let other people enjoy it eventually. So it's, necessary, but also it's a relief because I think I have all the ideas included that I really wanted to. And now it's written down and saved somewhere. So that's the writing that I did in 2024, was working on those 3 books. And I feel like I got a lot done between the 3 of those. Okay, let's look forward. So 2025, what are we getting ourselves into here? First of all, we need to get this updated. We need a new draft of this. We need to shave off another 20,000 words, which, hey, we did last year, so I can probably do it this year, right? And the good news with this, and why I'm probably not going to have a terrible January this year, is that for some reason I already had the spark of a thought of how I'm going to rework things here. That's what the entire spring is going to look like, is new draft. And hopefully I won't have to line edit too much since this is like a really decent starting place. My big plans for this are to send this to an editor this year and also to like an official round of beta readers. But first, I want one more pass. Then I don't think I'm going to get around to editing book 2 or 3 in the new year in 2025. My focus is on book 1, is on getting that out into the world. As is my custom, as I keep saying. In like the end of the year, I do want to draft again. And I think I'll probably draft the final book of this series that I've been working on, totally get it out of my head, set it down on paper, kind of kill it. I don't know how to feel about that. Like, I guess the daydreams will all just kind of settle down until I'm in a brainstorming phase and I'm like actively brainstorming for revision. As of right now, the final book in this project is the thing that my brain is always chewing on and always building new ideas for. And so my goal is definitely to set that to rest at the end of the year and have this complete thing to fully work on and edit and prepare for one day being in the world. The other thing I'm thinking about is actually a totally different project. It's a standalone and it has so much atmosphere, and the log line, like the 1-sentence explanation of this book of what this concept is and what the premise is so simple. There's one thing this is about, and it's going to be about that in a very impactful way, but it's streamlined. So the simplicity of it intrigues me, and I think that if I got an outline together, I could probably write it pretty quick. So I would love to outline and draft that at some point this year. So that is what this year is about, is finishing this series, getting book 1 ready, and starting a new project. And of course, reading lots of books and talking to other authors and just enjoying writing. That's not hard for me, so it'll just be another year of that. So yeah, that's my 2024 recap. Let me know in the comments below what your writing 2025 goals are, what your projects are that you're working on. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it and subscribe to my channel to hear more about writing process stuff and my reading life and all that good stuff. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in another video. Bye.